much did you miss that, and how much did you enjoy that feeling once again today?
The Friday that I went off air in December, I was not supposed to go off air, and I'll spill the tea. I mean, I literally had a contract that extended all the way till July. I told my agent I didn't want to re-sign with that entity, and it was nothing personal, but a company that was based in Kansas City bought one of the stations that I was working for, and so all of a sudden they didn't know me. They didn't know the Portland market. They didn't know the state of Oregon. They didn't know the Pacific Northwest even. They were just buying an equity, a piece of property, an asset, and they got my contract in the wash. And so it was just so. Here's the tell. Like, the BFT Foundation. Like, I do a lot of stuff that doesn't matter. Like, we talk about the quarterback and the injured forward and all this stuff. That stuff really doesn't matter. It's a lot of we're talking and we're telling what we know, but the BFT Foundation was born in 2009, and we helped a lot of kids go to summer camp, and we helped teachers put backpacks on kids that showed up for school without a backpack. And when the fires hit in the Central Oregon and the schools burned down and houses burned down, we made donations to help kids have school supplies and get back to normalcy a little bit. And so that BFT Foundation fundraiser was on that Friday. We were doing a radiothon on the Friday, and they came to me like 30 minutes before we go in on air, and they weren't mean about it. They just said, we don't think we want you to go on air today, because they had talked to my agent, and the conversation had been, John's not going to re-sign. There's nothing really that we can talk about. And I think they were afraid, and I wouldn't have done this. I think they were afraid I was going to go on air and just trash them. And I wasn't going to do that. We were going to go on air, and we were going to raise money for kids. And had they known the market, had they known me, had they known the BFT Foundation, had they known that all of the advertisers on the station were invested in that fundraiser that day happening, because why? We were doing something good for kids. I don't think they would have said to me, we don't want you on air this day. It wasn't mean or anything. I was like, are you sure? Like, we're trying to raise money for kids here. And so going off air that day, like, I started the show today talking about what the universe is telling you. The universe was telling me, you got it right. Don't re-sign with these bozos. They don't know you. They don't know the market. They don't know the stakes. And so today, I don't know if you picked it up, Chad, when I came on air, the energy that I had was like, I had a lot to say, and we had an hour to do it. And I was like just trying to get through the Blazers, the Ducks, the Beavers. Like, I had so much more to say, but the energy was there. But I liked sitting for like 8 months, because it gave me a chance to listen to your show. It gave me a chance to think about what I wanted my show to be. Do I want to be 3 hours? Do I want to be 1 hour? Gave me a chance to, like, do I need to do radio? And I was like, yes, I need this format because it's live.
Yeah, that's terrific. John Canzano, host of BFT Unfiltered, which debuted today on Rib City Radio 620. It's going to be weekdays 2 to 3. You can listen to them, which is great. I know a lot of people are excited to have you back on air. With your foundation, how much, I guess that's how I really learned about your heart, John, was the work you did through your foundation and how much it means to you and how much it's impacted my son Isaac. But for you, like, did you anticipate it becoming something so big that where you've been able to go out and really make a difference, especially with the kids, with your foundation work?
No, it caught me by surprise. We did it in 2009 because the state had a bunch of budget cuts. And I know teachers, and I know what those co-curricular activities did for me and my family. And I know that the teachers were stepping in and going into their own pocket, and they were paying for kids who showed up to school without a backpack, or showed up to school without a pair of shoes, or couldn't afford to play a musical instrument. And the teachers were going into their pocket, and they were back channeling it. And it became evident to me pretty early. Now, I get invited to a lot of events. People bring me because I like to support youth organizations and schools, or they bring me because they want me to speak, or they want me to be the MC, or, buy a table. And so I started showing up to these events like in 2008, 2007, and I started realizing, like, these entities are really bad at raising money. They're just not what they do well. They take care of kids. That's what they do well. And so I said, gosh, I have the platform like you do. Why not use it for something good? Why not have, like, when I'm at the gates of heaven someday, when they go, hey, you got this wrong, or he was mean to the Blazers, and maybe they say, hey, you know what, he helped a couple of kids. Like, maybe we let him in. Like, I don't know. But I just felt like this was something that we should all do. And then Camp Exceptional came from that, the summer camp that the foundation runs for special needs and typical kids. And I got to tell you, I take a week off from the camp, take a week off from work every year, and we do the camp, and it's all we do, and it's the most gratifying thing I do all summer.
Yeah, it's terrific. I love seeing the kids, the typical kids out there with the special needs kids, and to see, the confidence of the special needs kids grow over the course of the week. It's awesome. Terrific conversation with Dan Lanning, head coach of the Oregon Ducks. I've been very impressed with the work that he's done with the program, and I credit Rob Mullins for hiring someone outside of the Duck family and bringing someone in they thought was going to take the program to the next level. Dan Lanning certainly has done that. What do you think has been the biggest growth you've seen in Lanning from day one up until now?
He didn't know how to be a head coach his first year. He called me right after he got the job, and he was really worried about, there was a letter that had circulated prior to him being hired in which Joey Harrington, Achilles Smith, and Marcus Mariota and a bunch of Duck greats had signed this letter, sent it to Rob Mullins saying, hey, we've departed from our history. It was Mike Bellotti, it was Rich Brooks, then it was handing the baton to Chip Kelly, who came, more or less was an internal hire because he had spent some time in the program. Then it was Mark Helfrich, and then you got away from that with Willie Taggart. You got away from that with Mario Cristobal, and look what those guys did. They used you like a stepping stone. We're not a stepping stone. We need to go back and we need to hire somebody from our history who knows what it is to be what Oregon football is. And so, Mullins was under a lot of pressure, and he talked seriously with Justin Wilcox. He offered Wilcox the job prior to giving it to Lanning, but not in a way that Wilcox was going to accept it. The dirty little secret is, like Wilcox has even told me, he's like, I got a story for you someday on how that job was offered to me. But I know they offered it to him, and they said, you can't bring any of your assistants. We're going to hire your whole staff. But it was done in a way, and this is what administrators do. Like, I'm not saying Rob Mullins is a bad guy for doing it this way, but it was done in a way where he knew Wilcox wouldn't take it. You're going to have Tosh Lapoy as your defensive coordinator, and Wilcox is like, I'm the defensive guy. And so they offer him the job, but say, you can't really do the job. And so then they pivoted very quickly to Dan Lanning, who they wanted to hire all along. So they were trying to pacify the alums, trying to pacify the boosters that wanted a throwback to the Brooks Bellotti era. And there was nothing more throwback than hiring Dave Wilcox's kid to be the coach. And so it didn't happen that way. But Lanning gets the keys, and Lanning calls me and he says, hey, how do I connect with these guys? I need to reach back. And I said, it's going to be vital to you to bring those guys into the fold. And he did a really good job that first summer of getting those guys around the program. And you see Jamarcus Shepard doing it right now at Oregon State with Gary Payton and Chad Johnson. He's trying to bring those guys back and connect because there's money in it for him. There's the history of the program in it. Everybody loves to bridge back to the past. He's got Steven Jackson's kid at Oregon State on the roster in the locker room. Like that's a thing that's happening nationally where you go back and you reach into your past. But Lanning did a good job of doing that. But he was also saying yes to every fundraiser. He was showing up to every golf tournament. By the end of that first season, he was exhausted. And we all know there was multiple transfer portal windows. He, was coaching a longer season. He'd never been a head coach before. So I think at the end of that first season, Lanning just about face planted. You could just feel he was on it. He lost like 20 pounds by the end of the season. It's like this diet you didn't want to be on. And so in year 2, I watched him kind of do less. And then in year 3, he was really delegating. And then I had a lunch with one of his assistants, Joe Lorig, who's one of his special teams coach and a really good recruiter and a great story and a true Oregonian. Joe Lorig was one of his assistants. And I said, what has changed? And he says, I think Dan has figured some things out. And I think you can watch him. He's just figured some things out about pacing the season, delegating. That room of assistant coaches is massive. He's now, I think, doing more coaching of the coaches than coaching of the players.
That's terrific. What's the latest you're hearing with the negotiations with the Trailblazers and the city? We have a term sheet. The state, the city, and the county are all on the same page, and now they enter into the next 4 months of negotiations with the Blazers. What are you hearing, and what are you going to be keeping an eye on?
Well, I'm just glad there are some conversations being had because I was really worried 3 or 4 weeks ago when, I was hearing from sources at City Hall and on the Blazers side that they weren't really talking. And, and if you're not talking, I don't think you have a chance. Just today, though, I reached out to Ben Golliver, who covers the NBA. He's now at ESPN. And I wanted an outside-in view because sometimes I think one of the things I've learned, I've worked at 6 different newspapers. I've been in different markets. I think you have a real advantage when you're an outsider sometimes to see things. And I've been here 20 years. And I think, I'm wise enough to know I may be so immersed in this that I can't see all of it. And so I went to Golliver today and I said, tell me what it looks like to you from the outside. Because on the inside, it's anxious. There's a lot of hand-wringing. And Golliver said, it looks to me like Adam Silver wants this to stay in Portland. Like he wants the Blazers there. And I said, but the perception internally is Silver has played it down the middle. And he says, outside in, he goes, the fact that Silver knows that there are conversations going on, the fact that he even said, remember he said early on that things got off track. Yes. The fact that Silver even knew there was a track. Like, the fact that he was aware of that, Golliver could see that. Now, I couldn't see that from inside. So that was good to hear. He also pointed out that the NBA is trying to get into Europe and start a whole league over there. And he says Silver's really busy. But he said he stopped in Vegas to make this one of his talking points. Like, that he was talking about Portland. So I think that all bodes well for the market. I don't want people to fall asleep, though, because I think there is an internal pressure that fans can put on the franchise and the team and the league that is important here. And I heard people say, should I boycott? Should we show up in force? Like, what's the play you make? And I actually don't think Dundon cares if you show up or not at this point. I think he's still trying to run a business and make a profit and figure out if he has a lease. But I'm not telling people to boycott. I think it's the wrong play right now, because I think if you do, you sort of make the point that it's not tenable here. And I think the best selling point that the market has in Portland is fans have always showed up. They've supported the team when it's not very good. They're just dying to come back. They're calling it Chad's show left and right and listening to his show because they care so much about this team. Because that's, when Dundon bought the team, I had an investor as part of another group that was bidding, called me and said, will the fans come back in force? And I was like, no question. Those fans will come back. They have been mistreated at different times, but man, here they are. They just want this team to be so good.
That's terrific. John Canzano, host of BFT Unfiltered, weekdays 2 to 3 here on Rip City Radio 620. Well, John, welcome back, buddy. It's great to have you back on radio. And, what's interesting to me is how things come full circle. I got my first full-time start in radio on the same station you did when James Derby brought me over, and I remember that really well because it was right around the time that you had your conversation with Barack Obama. You remember that?
I do. And I remember getting on the air with him, and I was like, he did one interview in Portland that day, and yes. I remember Lars Larson was all kinds of mad at me, going, how did you get that interview? The dirty little secret is that Obama's people were going, hey, we just want to do one interview. Who do we do? And so we had all applied. And the guy that made the decision, the comms guy for Obama's camp, told me, you know what did it? You had a bobblehead doll. And we were like, hey, he's got a bobblehead doll. That must be a big deal. So, Chad, just get a bobblehead doll. You can get the president on the show. And so, but Obama came on, and at first he was like, I didn't ask him about health care. I didn't ask him about, national defense. I just asked him about sports. And as soon as he realized we were just going to talk sports, you could just feel he relaxed, and he just went right into the conversation. And it was at a time when you could talk to a politician without half the audience getting angry at you.
That's great. Now, the bobblehead, was that like up at old PG Park? Or what was the bobblehead night, right? Yeah, the Beavers.
Bobblehead night.
I remember that.
Yeah. And they let me throw the first pitch out that night. Did you ever hear the story of that?
No. What happened?
Okay. So, like I'm a baseball guy. I want to throw the first pitch out at a AAA game. And so they say, hey, we're going to do bobblehead night. You come throw the first pitch out. They'll get a good crowd. They said there'll be 8,000 or 10,000 people there. It'll be awesome. And I thought, oh, that's great. Because in my mind, I had played college baseball. And I was like, I'm going to get out there early. I'm going to get warmed up. I'm going to be in uniform. Like in my mind, I don't know why I saw myself as a player.
Yeah.
But I was like, it was far more elaborate in my mind than it ended up being, because they said, hey, the gate's open. We want you to go be at the gates. And you can greet people while they're getting your bobblehead as they're coming through the gate. So I did all that. And all of a sudden they were like, hey, we got to go. And so they walk me out, and they walk me out onto the field, and they hand me a baseball. Now, I don't have a glove. I haven't warmed up. I haven't done anything. And they go, get out on the mound. You're just going to throw the pitch. And now they're announcing me. I'm walking out to the mound. So I'm trying really quick, because when you throw like the radar pitch at the boardwalk,
yes.
You can throw and your arm goes numb.
Yes.
And you're like, why am I doing this? So I was thinking as I was going out there, I'm like, okay, just throw a strike. Just throw it to the catcher, throw a strike. And in my mind, I had visualized it, throwing a strike. So I'm like, I'm going to be good. I'm a baseball guy. I can throw a strike. So I get out to the mound, and the starting pitcher kind of steps to the side, and he's waiting to warm up. And I got up on the rubber, and he says, hey, don't do that. Like, he didn't want me on the rubber. he wanted me to throw from like a couple of feet in front. But as a baseball person, I know there's a little bit of your manhood that goes away if you don't get up on the rubber and you throw the 60 feet 6 inches. I wasn't going to throw a 58-foot pitch, so I kind of got in this little spat with the starting pitcher. I'm going, hey, I need to throw from the rubber. Like, you don't understand. He says, just throw it. Now they're kind of hurrying me.
Yes.
Somebody's going, hey, come on, we had a game here. And so I turn around towards home plate, and I see the most horrific thing. I see a guy who's standing there with a first baseman's glove, and he's standing upright. In my mind, I'm throwing to a catcher. All of a sudden, I got a first baseman there, and I'm looking at him, and I said to him, get down. And he says, no. I said, you need to get down. I want to throw, I'm throwing to a catcher here. I'm not hit a target. I'm not just throwing a ceremonial 58-foot lollipop.
Yes.
And so I turned to him, and I said, get down, and he kind of reluctantly gets into a half crouch. So now I'm annoyed, and I'm like, whatever. And so I start to wind up. I go into the wind. He looks horrified. And he yells, I don't have a cup on, as I'm winding up. And so now I'm like, in my mind going, don't throw it in the dirt.
Yeah, don't skip it.
Don't throw it in the dirt. And so what did I do? I threw it in the dirt, hit like in the left-handed hitter's batter's box. It skipped to the backstop. It was horrible. 8,000 people are booing me. And I'm yelling, give me the ball back. Give me the ball back. And everybody's like, get out of the way, you jerk. Like, get out of the way. But I got a chance to go out to Hillsboro. Thank you to K.L. Wambacher, because I told that story once, and he said, come out and redo it. They let me run polls. They let me get warm. They put me in uniform. Doug Drabeck was the pitching coach. He talked to me about what I was going to do right before, and so I threw a strike, and I got out of there. I'll never do it again. I erased it, kind of, my horrific memory.
Now, didn't you play college baseball?
Yes.
What position?
I was an outfielder.
Outfielder. Yeah, I love that. K.L. Wambacher's awesome. I've thrown the first pitch out at Hillsboro before, and I got to go down in the the players area and warm up on their little machine ahead of time. So I felt comfortable when I walked out to the mound the way it should be.
I was in a full uniform. They let me suit up. And then they had the pitching coach, Doug Drabeck, goes, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I'm looking for good location. I'm definitely throwing from the rubber. I want a real catcher out there who's got a cup on. And I threw it. I threw as hard as I could. Like, I'll never forget, I think Merritt Paulson, the Timbers owner, he saw a video of it, and he was like, you got a little velocity. And I was like, yeah, because I was ready to go. It was probably 78 miles an hour.
You were juiced up. Have you been out to the new stadium yet?
I just texted with KL today because they're down to the final homestand.
Yeah.
And he's like, you have to come out. So I'm going out this week.
Oh, good.
To check out a game.
Oh,
I hear it's amazing.
Oh, dude, as a baseball guy, you're going to walk around. You're not going to believe it, John. It is remarkable that Hillsboro was able to put together a park like that. Like, you're going to love it. It's got a big league feel to it. And I guess from all the people I've talked to, KL and Seth and the rest of the guys who work there, they always talk about the detail when you walk around the stadium. So no doubt that it belongs to the Hops and that you're in the Northwest. I can't wait to get your take on it after you have a chance to see it.
Yeah, look, I always say Hillsboro is a little bit like Vegas, and people will go, what do you mean? I go, but you know how you go to Vegas and they'll build something while you're visiting?
Yes.
And all of a sudden something is built. They do it everywhere else in Oregon. It takes forever. You go out to Hillsboro, they get some stuff done.
They're on top of it.
And they're on it.
Well, John, congratulations. It's great to have you back on radio. I appreciate you taking time for the show, and great job with Dan Lanning. But most importantly, we just look forward to hearing you each and every day, Monday through Friday, 2 to 3 here on 620. And anything else you need from John, just simply go over to johncanzano.com. You're the man.
Hey, man, I've watched you for years. I've watched you develop your own style, your own voice, and your authenticity wins, Chad. And I'm where I should be, and I'm nothing better than to get on base, let you drive me in.
I appreciate it, buddy. Thank you. All right, man. John Canzano, weekdays 2 to 3 with BFT Unfiltered here on Rip City Radio 620. We'll keep things rolling. Ryan Edwards talking NFL at 5:20, and we'll take a listen to that conversation that John had with Dan Lanning coming up at 4:20 here on the Rip City Drive. All right, this song reminds me of the conversation I saw on YouTube the other night. Rick Beato's got a new video up, and he is a big-time music guy with an extensive background. He had a conversation with a professor of rock, and they talk music. I would highly recommend that you check it out. So Portland Trailblazers guard Shaedon Sharpe, torn meniscus in his right knee and is expected to be sidelined for 6 months. That is according to Shams Charania of ESPN. That was a report that came out earlier today. The injury occurred during an offseason workout recently, and it's going to sideline Sharpe for a significant period of the upcoming season. The 6-month timeline would target a return for around February 24th of next year. So Sharpe's going to miss approximately Portland's first 59 games and will not be available until after the All-Star break. And, of course, Sharpe is 23 years of age, set to enter his 5th NBA season. In 50 appearances with the Blazers last season, including 42 starts, he averaged 20 points, 4 boards, 2 assists, and 1.5 steals per game. Played about 29.4 minutes per game and shot 45.2% from the field, 33% from beyond the arc. And, of course, last year was hampered by injury. In a game on February 6th, he suffered a stress reaction in his left fibula that caused him to miss 28 games. He returned April 10th with just 2 games remaining until the playoffs got underway. Sharpe also played in just 32 games during his second NBA season due to a core muscle injury that required surgery. Last October, Sharpe signed a 4-year, $90 million extension with the Blazers that kicks in this season. So that's a brutal injury. And again, I go back to this when it comes to the young players. You know, the Blazers have this young group of players, Shaedon Sharpe, Scoot Henderson, Denny Avdia, Tamani Kamara, Donovan Clingan. So they've got these 5 young guys. And I think we have a pretty good idea of what 3 of the 5 are all about. Donovan Clingan, from year 1 to year 2, made incredible leaps in just about every statistical category that you could imagine. And he was terrific in year number 2. So Donovan Clingan is the bona fide starting center on the team. Tamani Kamara, I think he's still searching for more effectiveness on the offensive end, in particularly from downtown, to continue to work on improving that three-point percentage. But he is the man that spearheads the Blazers defense. One of the best on-ball defenders in the NBA. He can defend multiple positions on the floor. He is tenacious. He plays long minutes. He's an Iron Man and does not miss time. Tamani Kamara is a formidable player for the Portland Trailblazers. And then, of course, you have Denny Avdia, their lone all-star on the team last year. He has continued to improve minute by minute in a Trailblazers uniform. He's their best facilitator. He's incredibly tough. He sets the pace, the tempo. He can do a little bit of everything. He is a great two-way player. So 3 of the 5 young guys that they have invested in, I think we know are critical parts of this team moving forward. But then you have the 2 guards who are both taken in the top 10, and Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe. The problem with both players is that they have missed significant time with nagging injuries, which prevents the team from being able to get all the helpful data that they need to be able to determine what they have. And this setback for Sharpe is another example of that. Fortunately for the Blazers going into the season, they have a ton of guards on the roster, so this should simplify the minutes and the dispersion of those minutes for the coaching staff. But Shaedon Sharpe's also one of the best shot creators on the team. But another frustrating piece of information for the Blazers as they get ready for a brand new season. All right, we'll keep things rolling. I'll get to Deshaun Watson. My heart goes out to all Browns fans. What a disaster. Deshaun Watson has been named the starter after a ridiculous weekend where all he had to do was keep it simple at the mic, and he couldn't do it. as a quarterback, you step up to the podium, they all say the same thing. And when you don't act like another quarterback would in that situation, you get yourself in trouble. I'll explain that next on the Rip City Drive. All right, what's up now? 4 o'clock chat here. Bad news for the Trailblazers. Shaedon Sharpe is going to miss 6 months due to a torn meniscus in his right knee. The Trailblazers season will begin with their preseason in early October. If that timetable is correct, Sharpe won't be available to return until February of 2027. Deshaun Watson has been named the Browns starter. Now says he regrets ripping the fans over the weekend. More on that coming up on the Rip City Drive. The WNBA has not announced any plans to prevent Enes Kanter Freedom from attending future games after he was ejected in Chicago on Sunday, but multiple sources have told ESPN that the former NBA player will not be eligible to play in the Women's League. 49ers owner Jed York pleaded no contest to a pair of misdemeanor charges Monday after being arrested in Ohio on suspicion of engaging in prostitution. He was arrested on site after he showed up and had agreed to participate in sexual activity for $140. I can't get over this 49ers Jed York story that's out right now. Reading at ESPN, San Francisco 49ers owner Jed York pleaded no contest to a pair of misdemeanor charges Monday after being arrested in Ohio on suspicion of engaging in prostitution. According to the Columbiana County, Ohio court records obtained by ESPN, York allegedly responded to an undercover ad on a known prostitution website and arranged to have sexual activity with the female in exchange for $140. My question would be, if you're Jed York and you have the type of money that he has, why are you going to the bargain aisle for tail?
Fly to a country where it's legal.
Well, or just be willing to spend a few more dollars to where you can protect yourself from having the authorities arrest you like that. York was arrested upon arriving at meeting location with the cell phone used to arrange the meeting, according to records. An arrest report filed by the East Palestine Police Department notes York was arrested Sunday at 9:35 a.m. at Wheat Hill Mobile Home Community. East Palestine Police assisted the Mahoning Valley Human Trafficking Task Force in York's arrest, according to the report. So let me get this straight. The owner of the 49ers was arrested on suspicion of prostitution after agreeing to sexual activity with the female in exchange for $140. And he was at an RV park or a mobile home park. Like, you can't make that stuff up. Come on, York. Oh, my goodness. Court records say the local prosecutor filed a plea arrangement Monday morning as York pleaded no contest and paid $1,150 in fines, $150 for the disorderly conduct charge, and $1,000 for the criminal tools charge. York also was sentenced to 1 day in jail for each charge, with 1 day already being considered served. Quote, "This was routine for someone facing those type of charges in our area and not having a history of this type of criminal conduct in the past." York filed for divorce from his wife, Danielle, in May, according to documents filed in Santa Clara, California, Superior Court. All right, so that makes sense. So he divorced in May, a little bit lonely, so why not hit the mobile home park in Ohio for $140?
Maybe his wife will never find out. Ex-wife.
All right, telephone number 503-248-0620. I want to get to this because I find it fascinating. But the Cleveland Browns, well, they're a disaster. I think you know that. Any football fan out there knows that. Heck, Browns fans know it better than anyone else out there. But Deshaun Watson is a complete mess. And when I say mess, I mean the biggest type of mess you can possibly imagine. He's not a good quarterback anymore, and he has tarnished his name. And, of course, the Browns, in acquiring him, put together the worst trade in NFL history, giving him a record $230 million in fully guaranteed money. I mean, that's unbelievable. $230 million fully guaranteed to a guy with a long list of problems. So the total number of lawsuits filed against Watson, and again, these were all civil lawsuits, 27 accusing Watson of sexual misconduct during massage sessions were filed starting back in March of 2021. 24 cases were settled confidentially. 20 initially settled in 2022, and the final remaining active cases were settled in early 2026. One case was withdrawn. The last remaining lawsuits, including one that had previously refused to settle, were dismissed with prejudice in February of 2026 after agreements were reached. So here's a guy that obviously has a problem. And Brown fans were furious with their ownership group, with the Haslam family, for bringing Deshaun Watson in and giving him a record in guaranteed money, $230 million. But this is what the Haslam family has done. They tried to destroy the University of Tennessee, and they have single-handedly run the Browns into the ground. I mean, what type of desperate do you have to be to go out and give Deshaun Watson that type of money? $230 million in fully guaranteed dollars? And this is the same franchise that had Baker Mayfield and yet gave up on him after he had taken him to the postseason, and now he has revived his career and has looked great in Tampa? Well, the Browns, as you might imagine, having a rough go trying to figure out their quarterback situation in the preseason between Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson. And what makes matters worse for Deshaun, not only the lawsuits, 27 of them that were filed, accusing him of sexual misconduct, the $230 million in fully guaranteed dollars, but then you add that into the fact that he has done nothing on the football field for the Browns since he's been in Cleveland. And, of course, he was getting booed heavily in the game this past weekend, and here's what he had to say when he walked up to the podium.
I mean, I didn't have no reaction. I think the biggest thing is I think you guys know too, and I think the whole world knows, it has nothing to do about the performance. It's a little bit personal than that. So I think it's a disrespectful thing. So, yeah, I mean, I'm going to keep whatever I feel with me and my family internally on how I feel about that. And, yeah, just move on.
But don't you think, Deshaun, that winning and playing better would eliminate some of that booing?
Last time I played on this field, I tore my Achilles. And that same fan base, they cheered when I got hurt. So does that have to do with, what does that have to do with anything about performance? When a person get hurt, especially for your own city, and they cheer.
Does any of that make you regret coming here?
No, I don't regret anything in my life. You know, I think the Lord put me through situations for a reason, so I don't regret anything at all. But, you know, I had different thoughts on how it was going to be, but, you know, it is what it is. You know, sometimes, you know, the tables turn, and I'm patient enough because I'm a child of God to, you know, wait for that time to change. So I'm not tripping on it.
How clueless do you have to be if you're Deshaun Watson? Now, keep this in mind. I don't think Brown fans are just booing Deshaun Watson or cheering when he's hurt. I think they're frustrated with the entire situation. One, that they have a guy on their team who's the quarterback who is a freaky human being with 27 civil cases filed against him for sexual misconduct. That's creepy. And then, ever since he's arrived in Cleveland, he has underperformed, and on top of that, was unavailable because he got hurt. And so, yeah, Browns fans are definitely booing Deshaun, but they're also booing the entire situation because they know ownership's a joke. They know Deshaun Watson is the worst trade in NFL history. And yet, once again, Browns fans are faced with another season that looks pretty bleak right now. What's crazy, now, if you had read the reports from people who are at practice every day, the quarterback competition between Shedeur and Deshaun Watson, there wasn't any clear separation. The majority of people thought that Shedeur had the slight edge or was a step ahead. I thought when I saw the game this weekend, and in the game, Deshaun Watson was terrible. They lost to the Bills at home 31-7. Watson, 5 of 12, 36 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. His QB rating in the game was 14.6. Now, Shedeur came in, 9 of 11, 74 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and played better in the game this past weekend. But when I saw Watson walk up to the podium and adjust his giant diamond earrings, and he was putting them in and adjusting them, and then had those type of tone-deaf comments, I was like, well, he's done. I thought at that point they would cut him, even though they'd have to take a massive dead cap hit. And that's the problem, is the money's so big if they cut him that they almost are married to him or stuck with him. Adam Schefter was talking about that today. But when I heard the comments and the way he, really kind of stuck it to the fans after that horrific performance this past weekend, I thought there's no way they're going to start him. Why not go with Shedeur? And yet they come out today and name him the starter. Now, I guess in some sense, maybe it's easier to start the season with the veteran. So if he falters, and he almost certainly will, then you move on to the young option in Shedeur, and it's an easier transition because sometimes when you start with the young guy, you might lose the vet. But here's what I don't understand about the Browns. They clearly are punting on this season, or that's what my guess would be with ownership, is they're going to punt on the season and hopefully put themselves in a position to be at the top of the draft next year so they can have access to a good quarterback, to find their quarterback of the future. But this is a roster that has a bunch of young players, young offensive players, running backs, wide receivers, guys who they need to evaluate and get time on the field for them to play so they can continue to develop as they shape the roster moving into the future. Deshaun Watson is not the future of the Browns. So why not play the younger quarterback in Shedeur to see what he has, to go young and allow these young guys to develop? When you've got Deshaun Watson, he's not the guy. He's not the future. Outside of the fact that you're paying him $230 million fully guaranteed dollars, that is the only reason that you would have to play him. And so I just think it's an incredibly foolish maneuver. And I can't believe he's going to be out there because I find it very hard to believe that the players are going to buy into him. One, because they probably think he's a creep, but two, most importantly, he's not a playmaker. He doesn't make plays. He has not been a good quarterback for the Browns. Well, of course, we get the news that he was named starter, and this is how he changed his tune today after the disaster this weekend.
Saturday after the game, I think just, human nature, just myself being very emotional, putting a lot of time these last 2 years to, get back and, spend time in this facility, in the city, meeting a lot of different people in the community. I thought I was going to get, a little different response, but, I think, my emotions got the best of me, and, my comments wasn't intending to go at any of the fans around in the city, because there's been a lot of great fans that have been supporting me. And I know the frustration this organization have put, a lot of investment in coming, to get me back in 22. And things haven't been going the right direction that we thought it was. A lot of injuries, a lot of time off, and not putting the best football and my foot forward. So, again, just, I understand the frustration. I understand everything that kind of goes into that. And moving forward, I just want to focus on football, making sure that, I'm putting the best product out there, having the best ability, because I thrive off the energy. I thrive off the energy of the fans. I thrive off the energy of the community. I thrive off all that stuff. I think looking back in my history at Clemson and, previous at the Houston organization, I was a big community guy, big city guy, big fan guy, during the game. So, again, my emotions got the best of me. I'm human. I take full responsibility of that. And, just moving forward, I want to make sure that I put the best product for the team, for the organization, and for the city so we can put a lot of wins and make sure that I celebrate and put Cleveland on the map. That's why I put the helmet on my head and I put the uniform on my body, is to go out there and make sure I put my best foot forward.
All right, he's full of crap. Here's how it works for quarterbacks, and I think you've all seen this before, right? Let me ask you a question. If you're a quarterback after a game and you step up to the podium, how do all of them, the quarterbacks who are doing it the right way, respond to questions? How do they respond? If you're a franchise quarterback, you're a starting quarterback, what is the appropriate way for the QB to respond? Because remember, a quarterback is different than any other player on the roster. You're the face of the franchise. You are the guy that can impact the game more than anybody else because you have the ball in your hands so often. You're supposed to set the tone in practice. You're there to provide leadership, and you're an extension of the coaching staff on the field. So what these guys do, regardless of how they play, like if you're Bo Nix and you go out there and you throw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns and the Broncos win the game, what does he do? Hey, Bo, 5 touchdowns, over 400 yards. You guys got a big win today. What'd you think about your performance? Well, I'm just really happy to play with the coaches that I have. They did a great job of putting together a game plan, and I credit my offensive line for giving me the time to be able to sit back there and make good decisions. And I thought the receivers today did a really good job of making me look good because they didn't drop a darn pass. You deflect and give credit to everybody else. And then what happens if the quarterback plays well and the team loses, or the quarterback plays bad and the team loses? The response is the same. Hey, Bo, you struggled out there today and you guys lost a big game in division to the Chiefs. What was your takeaway? I've got to play better. I didn't do a good enough job of putting my teammates in a position to have success. I expect so much more of myself, and I guarantee you this week I'm going to work my ass off to make sure next Sunday that I'm at my best because I did not live up to my standard today and I let my teammates down. You take the blame. You don't take the credit. You deflect and credit everyone else on the roster. And if you lose, even if you played your ass off and your teammates failed around you, you take the blame. But Deshaun Watson did not do that. It's not hard to be a quarterback in the post-game press conferences. In fact, it's one of the easiest parts of their job. If you play well and you win, you deflect and give credit to everyone else around you. If you lose, even if you play well, you talk about how you need to be better and how you're going to work your tail off to make sure that next weekend you're at your best so you can put your team in a position to win. Deshaun Watson is crazy. And he's creepy too. But this is what you get when you have a team that is run by clueless owners like the Haslam family. Every year it's the same teams at the top. The Jets, the Browns, you know the teams. And it starts with ownership. And the Browns are very poor at the top. And that stuff rolls downhill. All right, we'll keep things rolling. You got the Rip City Drive. Dan Lanning is coming up next. All right, so today was a very big day on Rip City Radio 620. We're starting today at 2 o'clock. John Canzano has made his return to the Portland airwaves with BFT Unfiltered. It's a show that will run daily here on Rip City Radio 620 from 2 until 3. And today he was live, which was great. And he will have days where he's going to extend the show out, and he's got the freedom to do that, where he'll go longer than an hour if we get some really big breaking news. But it was just great to hear his voice again and have him back on the airwaves. And I wanted to celebrate that. For those of you who did not hear the conversation, on his first show today, Oregon Duck head coach Dan Lanning joined the program. So I want you to hear this conversation. Football season's right around the corner, but I think it's a great way to celebrate John's return to the Portland airwaves.
Dan Lanning, University of Oregon football coach, is joining us. I got up early today. I worked out. I feel good about that. I'm on a little bit of a kick. How are your morning workouts going, Dan Lanning?
Believe it or not, I've been doing a better job working out. It's not necessarily always morning, but I've been doing a better job. I think I'm like 5 out of 6 days in a row right now, which is long for me.
It's all habit, right? Because you get your guys in a routine. You want to be in a routine. You get your coaches in a routine. Is that how many workouts do we need to consider it a habit? Is 5 or 6 enough?
Not there yet. Yeah, I'm not there yet. We got to make this last a few weeks here, but it's always about finding the time, right?
I'm not going to ask you the normal questions about the depth chart and the offensive line and who's looking good in camp. How are your coaches doing? How do you feel? Let's check in with those guys. You have to do that as a head coach, don't you?
Yeah, I'm really excited about our coaching staff. I think they're all phenomenal teachers. I think they see problems, they figure out how to solve them. They take a lot of accountability for what's happening on the field and what we're executing really well, what we're not. So really, really pleased with this group.
Are we going to notice a difference in play call, philosophy, scheme because of the coordinator changes, or is it more boilerplate? These guys they know what you do.
I hope every year when you watch us, you see some nuances that are slightly different because of things we studied in the off season that can make us better. So I hope there's always some changes. I don't know if that the average fan will sit and see something that's really like completely different. I think philosophy wise, there'll be a lot of similarities. We want to be a team that can run the ball. We want to be a team that can stop the run. We want to make sure we leave it in our players' hands to win and lose games, right? And not try to out scheme ourselves to where we, do some things that are unsound. I think you'll see all those things show up, but I'm sure there'll be some certain things that are different about our team this year in comparison to others.
Outside in view, I watched you in your first season and I thought, here's a guy who's learning how to be a coach. He's learning how to say no. They can't do every golf tournament, can't do every interview. And you delegated better, I think, in year 2, 3. And then I kind of watched you maybe 2 years ago, and I thought, the season felt longer because of the longer playoff, and it felt longer with you guys in it. Saw you maybe make some adjustments there. What did you learn last year watching that team and that journey?
Well, I think I learn things every single year, whether it's how we adapt practice schedules, what do we do differently, when it comes to, retention of staff, retention of players. There's just so much more that you're wearing, and the rules continue to change day by day, right? Whoever thought that NFL players could potentially play on college football teams, that things continue to change and adapt. So I've always thought that was the most important trait. But what's different is that, we have new coordinators. We have a lot of people in new roles. So I think I'm coaching the coaches a little bit more, trying to make sure that I have my eyes across the entire organization. But on the same note, we have a lot of people that have been here and know what I want it to look like. We have some players that have some experience. So what do those reps look like for those players in practice compared to games? Understanding it's a longer season. How do you adapt that? How do you adjust that? So I hope I'm always growing. And the minute I'm not, that means I'm probably shouldn't be a coach anymore.
Let's drill into the NFL players who play in preseason games and then come back to college. And where are we at with that? Like philosophically, are you okay with that?
No, I don't think that makes any sense.
Okay.
I mean, right now there's limitations about your roster. So if anybody's doing that in good conscience and they're taking somebody on your team now, that means you're going to kick somebody else off your team, right? To be able to hit your roster numbers and your limits. I just don't think that's fair to the players that are here. One, two, I mean, there used to be a thing when you had an agent or went pro, like you're no longer allowed to go amateur again. And I know that college sports is no longer amateur sports, but I think I saw something the other day, maybe Hurley said, we have to protect coaches from coaches, because every coach,
Mm.
we're here if we win, right? And if you
Right.
create a loophole, you create an opportunity for a coach to make his roster better. Coaches are going to go try to do that. And this is a situation where I think, there's some coaches that are trying to make their rosters better, and players that want another opportunity because they realize they're not going to make it in the NFL or not going to be able to stick. And we're not protecting the game. So that's unfortunate. We'll see how it all plays out.
Where are you at with eligibility? You like 5 years, play 5 seasons? That's it?
I think in general, the 5 for 5 is a good rule. In a sense that you don't, week 4, you don't have guys walking into your office saying, "Hey coach, I don't want to play anymore. I want to, save my red shirt." I think it allows you to make sure that your roster is the strongest at the end of the year. I think it prevents some guys from, being on a college team for 8 years, which I don't think is necessarily a good thing. But every situation is different, and there's going to be some positives. There's going to be some negatives of this, but hopefully at the end, what it provides more than anything is clarity.
Yeah, I was looking around last year in the playoffs, and I don't think it was accidental that you had 2 of the oldest teams playing for the championship. I mean, those guys were old guys, and you had some 19-year-old, 18, 19, 20-year-old guys in uniform. You'll never make an excuse for it, but how much growth do you get? Like Dante Moore a year later, your receiving core a year later. Like how much older, better, wiser, stronger do those guys get?
Yeah, you see night and day differences in guys that get to be with your team multiple years and for a period of time. And I think, hopefully we see some of those gains for us this year.
One of your 4-star recruits lives a block from me, Alex Molden, and his kid on a recruiting visit. I guess we can just talk in general terms about this. I asked him, what was the home visit like? And he said, Coach Lorig came in the door and wanted to see his bedroom. He wanted to get let me see where this kid is sleeping, what's on his walls. What are you guys trying to get in a moment like that? Is that a normal thing? Let me see this kid's room.
I don't think I can speak specifics about what you're talking about right now, but in general, we want to know as much as we possibly can about every player, right? And, a glimpse into a bedroom might give you an idea of the discipline of a player, the organization of a player, what's important to them. I think you're always trying to find those things as a coach.
Good heavens. If you had come to my room at 17, 16 years old, not clean. Like when grandma would come to the house, we would scramble around and clean up because grandma was going to inspect the room. What was Daniel Lanning's bedroom like 15, 16 years old?
Yeah, definitely depended on the day, but my parents were pretty good at making sure it had to stay pretty tidy.
What's on the wall in your bedroom, childhood wall?
Posters, I'm sure. I'm trying to think back. I mean, I'm sure there was a Shaquille O'Neal poster. There's probably there was a Derek Thomas poster up on the wall.
I love that. The practice facility, a lot of bells and whistles there. What are you excited about when it comes to that building?
Yeah, overall player experience, for our guys, I think it's going to be able to maximize their ability when they're in the building when it comes to recovery. When we talk about transitions, you're limited by a 20-hour rule in college football. So anytime spent walking up and down stairs or in between one building to the next building is so valuable. The teaching that we're going to be able to do, we'll have a classroom attached to this new building that'll allow us to go straight from the classroom straight to the field and educate our players where we can present a play and then walk right into the indoor and do a walkthrough. The enhancement when it comes to the weight room will be bar none. There will be nothing else that touches that. So I think there's a lot of pieces of this, even the nutrition piece and where our players are able to hang out, I think is going to be, drastically different.
Oregon football coach Dan Lanning with us on the Bald Face Truth. The air quality thing keeps coming up. And I don't know about you, but I don't remember this being part of my childhood.
It certainly never existed in the Midwest where I grew up. There were hot days, but we never had anything when it comes to this. Now the smoke and that is a little bit different in the Pacific Northwest, and certainly nothing I've ever dealt with as a coach until I got here. But that's going to be one of the new benefits of the new facility as well. Is we can filter the air and be able to have a normal practice in that indoor on days that we run into things like that.
Will you bump the temperature up? Can you do that if you're, say you're going on the road?
Yeah, we can change the temperature.
Like how high? Like what do we do? Go 90 if you're going to?
I don't have the exact, I couldn't tell you the exact numbers, but we're going to be able to make it really cold in there, make it really hot in there.
It's fancy. That is fancy. You didn't have that at William Jewell, did you?
We did not. We didn't have an indoor at William Jewell. We had we would go practice on the basketball court in tennis shoes and shoulder pads and a helmet if we had to move inside.
Do you still? Okay, so look, this is a 5-star existence, right? You're at the Ritz-Carlton of facilities, But do you remember what it was like to camp as a coach? Like, do you remember what it was like to not have this stuff and you had to rewind the film, back it up? You didn't have these cuts on an iPad.
Absolutely. Yeah. Different world we're in right now. It's definitely a blessing.
But do you have moments where you look around and you're like, you look through the new facility and you're like, holy hell, like this is next level. Like,
Yeah, I think this will be untouched, and nothing that I've ever experienced as a coach at other stops in my career. This is it's going to be really special when it's done.
did you get out this summer on the lake? Did the kids get on the tube? What was
We
your
got on the
outing?
tube a little bit, yeah, and rented a little bit better boat, so I had a little more horsepower behind me. I could throw them off a little easier.
Not the pontoon boat with the
Not the pontoon. No,
so-
not the pontoon. We had a little bit of a wave boat, or I don't know what you call it, the ones that
Yeah.
make a wave behind it.
I like
So
that you don't know. Do you not want to buy a boat or you don't use it enough or what?
make a lot of sense when you vacation from 1 week a year to pay for a boat all year when you can rent it,
Just
so
rent it for
we
a
don't have enough
weekend.
don't have enough time. And then what are you doing with it for the other 51 weeks of the year? So yeah, I rent a boat.
I tell you
Someday.
what you're doing. You're paying someone to store it. You're paying someone to maintain it. You're paying, not that I know this from
And then
experience.
when
you're
it's broke,
paying-
you have to
Yeah.
fix it, right?
you got a lot
Always
of
heard,
problems.
like the best friend is the friend that has a boat, one that you don't own, but like they own. So yeah, I'm same philosophy right now.
I think it was last year that there was a campaign in your household to ban Red number 6. What's the latest?
Red 40, yeah, it's
Red
gone.
40. Yeah.
I've had a conversation with Sophia since. Like, there's things that if you don't want, that's fine, but that doesn't mean everybody else doesn't get to have that. We went on an anti-plastic kick for a while, so there's a bunch of glass in our house. Yeah. So that
You got to roll with it.
there's been a shift. There's been a shift in momentum here, and a little bit of understanding that the lines have been blurred. What you use can be different than what somebody else has used, and that's okay.
How are you with the kids and kind of watching them grow up? I mean, I think it's kind of a cool thing to see. I think you got one who's a musician or a band member. You've got an athlete. Where are we at with these kids? Help us know them a little bit.
Well, Caden's driving now, so literally he's got his driver's license, which is scary as a parent, but he's done a really good job so far. And he actually is going to play football this year for the first time in his life. So he's gone off of that. He's enjoying it a lot. He's learned a lot. Knows he has to get a lot better, but I think he's enjoying it with the people that he gets to do it with there at Sheldon. Niles is doing awesome as ever, still writing, still reading, still making movies, doing it all. Super creative. And then Titan just started up football as well. So he's right in the thick of things with football practice, and certainly enjoying that.
Who taught the kid to drive?
Combination, man. This was like we had a service that helped, right? I did some driving lessons. Our neighbor did some unbelievable driving lessons. My wife did some driving lessons. Even Jeff Hawkins, who works here in our building, has done some driving lessons with Caden. So he's had a lot of hands on deck.
Okay, so you don't need to get too in the weeds on this, but where are you at with, like, you grew up on that pickup truck, as I recall, like that's where you learned to drive, whatever. And then I don't know how old you were when you got a new car. Like, what was your first new car?
When I went to college, my parents, when I was playing ball, they got me a Chevy Cobalt, and that was the first new car. I had a Taurus, I had a pickup truck, I had a Buick Acclaim. Like, those were all the vehicles I drove before I got to college. Caden right now is driving. When we were at Memphis, I bought Sophia a Honda Pilot.
Okay.
So it was back in 2016. So Caden's currently driving a Honda Pilot.
You still have that car?
Still runs great. So
why do you keep that car? Why did you keep it?
What was Caden going to drive? I wasn't going to buy him a new car, right?
I like that. Yeah, because you sort of accept that he's going to back into something.
You want a car that's safe for him to drive, that works great, which it's amazing. It has well over 100,000 miles and it works great. But yeah, I don't need him riding around in a Lexus or a Mercedes right now.
Good for you.
Figuring out how to drive.
Good for you. I'm sure that the parents approve of that. I had Rob Mullins on the show last week. He talked about why he picked you as a coach. He said he saw somebody who was organized and that had it together. When you think back at that time when Oregon was interviewing you for the job, how ready did you feel when you look back? What didn't you know about the job as a head coach? The ecosystem changed on you, by the way, too, after you took the job.
Yeah, I had a lot of confidence that I've been around great ones and seen how it was done. I also had a lot of confidence that there's going to be some unexpected and a lot of things that I don't know, but I had the ability to adapt to it as long as I had great people around me. And I think that's what we've hit home runs on, or the people that are around me make my job a lot easier. And you got to have a little bit of foresight. You have to be able to look around the corner and see what's coming. But I've hired a lot of people that, have helped me do that. And you can't ever be ready for this job, in my opinion, right? You have to learn. There's on-job training. There's some learning that goes, with it, and the ability to make sure you can't wear every single hat because you can't and do a great job. But we have, now going into year 5, you've been with some people for a long time. They understand expectations and what it looks like.
That thing of not trying to do everything. How hard is that for you to not have your hands on everything?
Certainly hard at the beginning. And even now, I still want to be a part of all of it. So I think that the key is knowing, okay, you can be a part of all of it, but you can't be in charge of all of it. And so it's very important for me to be in an offensive meeting, in a defensive meeting, creating as much opportunities as possible for everybody in the organization to meet together and be on the same page. I think is critical, and we try to create that. That lets everybody hear my thoughts and my voice, but also, they can break away from that room and know, okay, we're carrying the same message and vision throughout the organization.
I remember talking with Justin Herbert years ago, and he still was a kid when I was talking to him and interviewing him. And then something changed, Dylan Gabriel. I said to Dylan, life's going to get serious in a year. You're going to the NFL. You're going to be a pro. And he says, John, I don't know how to tell you. We are pros. And he's wearing a suit, a nice suit. He's got, the kids have changed. Have what's important to the recruits changed, or is it still playing time, opportunity, relationship? When you're recruiting kids, are they different?
I don't think so. When you're recruiting the right kids, I think what's harder is the distractions that exist in life now for these guys. There's so many opportunities to at times take the easy way out or be influenced by what do they think. They know in their heart what's right? Like, this is an opportunity for me to grow, improve, and get better. But it's so hard when somebody's sitting on the other side of a computer, or a family member or somebody else says, hey, you have a better opportunity waiting for you somewhere else. I think that's the part that's hard, and being able to really process that of like, how can I become the best version of me? You really have to have a really narrowed focus.
I've talked to some recruits who, some schools that you recruit against will tell them, we need you to commit today. We don't want you to go on another visit. I'm hearing from guys that you recruit, you sort of tell them, go see somewhere else and then see it. Does that feel like home to you, or is this home to you? Why are you so confident about that? Or why do you want them to go see other places?
Yeah, ultimately, one, if this isn't the best fit for him, I don't want him to come here, right? And I think, you can trick somebody into coming somewhere, or you can have somebody that comes here because it's pounding out of their chest. This is the place that I need to be, and those are the guys that I want. I want them to have the utmost confidence that they made the right decision. And there's other places to see. I always tell them, you're not going to marry the first girl you meet, right? You're going to go on a couple dates. You're going to figure out, hey, can we get along before you do that? So I'm not interested in who can get the first commit in March, right? I'm really worried about what our signing day, our signing class looks like come December. And I'm always concerned about, like, guys, have they been here enough to make an informed decision, right? Because if, you twist somebody's arm to make them, be a guy that comes here, then ultimately there's always going to be that question in the back of their head.
How big a problem is tampering now? Is it gotten better? Is it still the same? Is it worse? In the last year or so, where has it moved?
It certainly still exists. I think where it's improved is there's one portal window instead of 2 or 3. So I think that's limited it a little bit, but I think it's something you always have to be conscientious of, and it certainly exists. And it's more backdoor than it is direct contact with players. It's communication with agents and high school coaches, and it's part of the game. It's part of what exists.
I think too, it's, some of this legislation that they're talking about, they want certification for agents. Where are you on that? I mean, you're probably recruiting, and talking with someone's uncle one day, and then you're talking to an agent, and then maybe a fake agent. And like, how much uniformity would be helpful for the system if you could just say, hey, this is an agent, nobody else can be an agent?
Yeah, I think that more than anything, it would protect the players, right? Because you get good advice from people that are well trained, and you get poor advice from people that aren't. And I think if just like the NFL, if there was a certification process, that probably helps. Certainly helps players. Certainly helps us as a staff. But players need great representation too. If they decide that's something they need.
Theo of Golden was recommended to me. Joe Lorig gave me that one. What are you reading right now, or what have you been reading?
The book's down right now. I'm in fall camp mode.
Yeah.
But certainly enjoyed a few this off season. Starts with Why was another one I went back to and read. But right now I don't have a book on hand that I'm deep into.
Why'd you go back to It Starts With Why?
I just think it's always great to have a solid reminder of what really matters. Again, there's so many distractions for everybody, but I think capturing the hearts of your players and the people in your organization is the key.
Yeah, to that point, like the outside world's going to tell you what matters is a national championship and that validation. But when you're 70 years old sitting on the porch, what's going to matter to you?
Hopefully some grandkids and family and then success of the players that played for me, and what they're doing in life. That's always something that I think will always resonate with me.
You probably have success stories that go well beyond football. I mean, everyone wants to talk about the guys that play in the NFL, but do you have guys that just reach out to you? They're living normal lives, have kids, families that, success?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, now we got a lot of guys on our staff, that were former players. For me, that's always, exciting to get to see what they're doing and how they're moving up in the world and taking advantage. But yeah, you get just as excited about, guys that are able to create those opportunities for themselves outside of ball.
Dan Lanning, appreciate you. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
All right. Hope you enjoyed that conversation. John Canzano with Oregon Ducks head coach Dan Lanning. The BFT Unfiltered show started today and will air weekdays 2 to 3 here on Rip City Radio 620. Coming up at 5:20, we're going to head to Denver and talk with one of our NFL insiders, Ryan Edwards. Obviously, want to get his take on Bo Nix coming off his first game since the ankle injury against Buffalo in the postseason. And we'll take a look around the NFL, including the disaster in Cleveland with the Browns. And are the Seahawks being overlooked right now in a very packed NFC? That's all coming up next on the Rip City Drive with Chad Doing. All right, it's 5 o'clock, Chad here. What's up, my friends? Trailblazers got some bad news today. Shaden Sharp, according to Shams Charania of ESPN, is going to miss 6 months due to a torn meniscus in his right knee. If that timetable holds true, he will not be eligible to return until February of next year. The Trailblazers season will kick off with preseason games in early October. Deshaun Watson has been named the Browns starter, now says he regrets ripping the fans over the weekend. The WNBA has not announced any plans to prevent Enes Kanter from attending future games after he was ejected in Chicago Sunday, but multiple sources told ESPN that the former NBA player will not be eligible to play in the Women's League. 49ers owner Jed York pleaded no contest to a pair of misdemeanor charges Monday after being arrested in Ohio at a trailer park on suspicion of engaging in prostitution for $140. Yeah, I'll say this about Dan Lanning after hearing him with John Canzano. You know, the Ducks are one of the favorites to win the national championship this year. Isn't it pretty crazy to think back to 1994 when the Ducks made their run to the Rose Bowl, when Rich Brooks laid the foundation for this program and what it's become today, that now each and every year the Ducks are automatic national title contenders going into every season. And what I love is how every single coach has continued to build upon the foundation that was laid down. Mike Bellotti came in and took the program to a different level, had the foresight to be able to hire someone like Chip Kelly, who went to 4 straight BCS bowl games and brought a new level of attention to the program. Phil Knight's efforts continue to boost the program with their facilities and now with the NIL. We saw the work of Willie Taggart and really changing the way that the Ducks recruit. Mario Cristobal was able to come in and really start changing the way that the Ducks attack the line of scrimmage. And now Dan Lanning has taken the program to a different level. He's utilizing all the resources that are necessary. He's recruiting the heck out of the country. Just take a look at the roster and look at where all these guys on the roster are from. Like, he is spreading his reach into different parts of the country and getting access to some of the best players. And now the Ducks, through the recruiting efforts, through their resources and the transfer portal and NIL, they now have the guys up front to be able to compete at the line of scrimmage, which is necessary to win a championship. And most importantly, they now have the depth to be able to sustain injuries that pop up throughout the course of the season so that you don't have much drop-off when some of your frontline guys go down. And so Lanning has got this program in a position to where they're knocking at the door. And if you continue to put yourself in a position where you're knocking, eventually the door is going to fly open. And so I credit him, and Lanning also, as Canzano mentioned, didn't have any experience as a head coach when he took over, but we're seeing growth in the way that he works with his players, the way that he develops his players, and most importantly, the in-game decision-making between the lines on Saturdays, being a better game manager. He's getting better as a head coach, and he's still got a lot of room for growth. But I was just talking to a Duck alum today and someone who's really plugged into the program, and he said that Dan Lanning, the energy that he brings around Eugene to Duck fans and the big boosters, his willingness to show up and be a part of these different activities and events that are going on to help in the fundraising effort. I mean, he makes time, even if it's just a few minutes, to show up and spread that energy. And the guy is relentless in his approach and his effort, which is pretty amazing. So it's good to see. And the Ducks are right there. And if you look at their schedule, they got a couple of key games, USC and Ohio State. Probably going to be a tough game after you travel to Ohio State to come back home and face Michigan, which is now coached by Kyle Whittingham. So there's a couple of potential pitfalls but they're going to be in a position once again to win the conference and position themselves well for the playoff. Now, the other good news, aside from college football getting ready to kick off, is that we have NFL football, full slate of preseason games the last couple of weeks, and now the regular season is just around the corner. But I think there are a couple of things that have jumped out at me so far. The Seattle Seahawks would be one of those teams. They just won the Super Bowl, so they're the defending champ, and yet nobody is really picking them to repeat or get back to the bowl. And I think part of that is because winning one championship is tough. Going back-to-back is really difficult, and you have to overcome a lot. But the Seahawks are coming off a very successful year. But what I like about what they've done, and a lot of credit goes to John Schneider, their general manager, a young roster with young energy, young playmakers, and a group of guys that still have a lot to prove. And a very young head coach who continues to get better in Mike McDonald. They're aggressive, they want to attack, and they're really talented. But one of the keys, and there are two teams in particular, the Denver Broncos and the Seattle Seahawks would be one of them, a lot of continuity. The majority of guys in their starting lineup from last year are back this year. And so what that means for the Hawks is that they'll probably be able to start fast because of the continuity. Guys know their role. They understand each other. You get another year with Sam Darnold, who's coming off a championship, so I would expect him to play with even more confidence. And then the head coach, Mike McDonald, continuing to grow in his role as a head coach and get better and more precise in his operation. I think the Seattle Seahawks are super legit, and I expect them to be one of the teams contending for a championship, but I love the continuity. And I'm happy for Sam Darnold, a guy who's really grinded throughout the course of his career, to get into a position to where he can showcase what he can do. He's got a team now that is his own. He's got a title under his belt, and the guys believe in him. And Sam Darnold, even though he's a big star at USC, he comes from a prominent family. He's very nonchalant in his approach. He's not looking for the attention. He's not trying to be a poster child for the me generation. He just wants to go about his business and win football games. He's got the type of character and the way he carries himself that you want in a starting quarterback. So I'm very high on the Seahawks, and I think they're poised for a big year. Now, with the Denver Broncos, same thing. The majority of their lineup that won 14 games last year is back. They invested in bringing their own guys back. Same starting five on the offensive line. They have the most continuity amongst NFL teams when it comes to the offensive line. They bring back their receiving core. They add Jalen Waddle, who made an immediate impact in his first game played against Green Bay this past weekend. And you have a young team that's continuing to get better and believes in what they can do after what they did last year with 14 wins. And Sean Payton's one of the best coaches in the NFL. But Bo Nix was able to play this past weekend, first game back since ripping up the ankle against Buffalo in the playoffs. I think he was 6 of 9, 76 yards, a touchdown, no picks, 3 of 4 on third down, and he looked very confident out there, including the big pass over the middle to Jalen Waddle. But Bo Nix can do it all. And now the key for Bo Nix, and there's still a lot of doubters out there when it comes to Bo Nix, you can't deny the production over the first 2 years in his career, but now he's got to elevate the game. And usually for quarterbacks, young quarterbacks, year 3 is when it kicks into a different gear. And that means for Bo Nix now, being more precise with his footwork and looking to attack the middle of the field. And I think he's going to be able to do that. But most importantly, the Broncos now, with the return of J.K. Dobbins and going out and drafting Jonah Coleman, and they have R.J. Harvey, you're going to find a more balanced team on offense. They're going to be able to run the football better. That's going to set up Bo in situations where he can be more effective with play action. And I think Bo will continue that progression, that maturity to be able to attack over the middle of the field. What's going to be fun to watch is Davis Webb, their quarterback coach, is now the offensive coordinator and has taken over the play calling duties from Sean Payton. I'm anxious to see his attack mentality when it comes to play calling. I'm anxious to see how patient Sean will be as he grows in that role. But I think the Broncos are going to be super legit. Now, we talk about injuries in the preseason all the time. The Chargers have now lost their starting center for the entire season after this past weekend. Last year, they dealt with injuries to both their starting tackles in Slater and Alt. And now already they've got to deal with an injury up front. Now, Sean Payton was super pissed after the loss to Green Bay over the weekend. He's like, pick a category. We were bad in every phase of the game. He was not happy. I just looked at the game very simply. I said, well, we saw what we needed to see from Bo. We're all good here. But not Sean. He was bitter. And he was talking about wanting to play the guys in the final preseason game up into the third quarter. It's like, what, are you kidding me? Settle down, coach. I know you're upset, but you're not going to play your guys into the third quarter in the final preseason game. It's not worth the risk to have these guys injured. Riley Moss, their cornerback, hurt his ribs, but it looks like it's not serious, and he should be okay and on track for the season opener in Kansas City against the Chiefs. Now, I did go down this past weekend. I was hosting a drawing down at Spirit Mountain. Tony Out in Boring, who's a huge Bears fan, had me put down a wager for him on the Bears to win the championship this year. So he is super geeked up on the Bears. And I can't wait to see Caleb Williams year 2 in that system with Ben Johnson. My only question about the Bears is defensively, are they going to have enough to get the stops that you need to take some of the pressure off of Caleb Williams in the offense? But we'll see. I thought Buffalo looked razor sharp in their effort against Cleveland. Buffalo's going to be one of those teams to beat, no question about it. The Rams hammered the Saints. Stetson Bennett got some good action, 19 of 31, 181 yards in his effort with the Rams. But you can see just by the way they took the field and played, I can't really identify a weakness on the Rams squad. The only thing I can say about them is that they're relying upon Matthew Stafford staying healthy. But outside of that, they got skill position players. They can run the football, good offensive line, the best defensive front in football, one of the best quarterbacks in football who is tough and really accurate. That battle in the West between the 49ers, Rams, and Seahawks is going to be epic. It was great last year, and it's got a chance to be even better this year. Other things that I'm going to be paying attention to throughout the course of the year, Fernando Mendoza. Now, I don't think he's going to start the season under center for the Raiders. My guess is they'll go with Kirk Cousins because there's no reason to throw him out there so soon behind an offensive line that's probably going to be a little bit leaky. So you're going to have Kirk Cousins take some for the team to protect your young quarterback in Fernando Mendoza. But Mendoza, even though he threw the pick six that got returned for 80 yards and a touchdown, he's already showcasing a lot of talent. Getting a chance to work from under center. You can see his recognition, his delivery of the football being on time and on target, which is nice to watch. Like, there's a certain poise with certain guys that you notice right away. And I think Mendoza is one of those guys. Now, we'll see how it continues to progress. But the great situation the Raiders are in right now, they've got Mendoza, but they don't have to play Mendoza. There's no pressure. So Clint Kubiak, their new coach, can sit back and wait until the time is right. And then that way, when you're ready to slide him in later in the year and start get some real playing time and some starts under his belt, at least then he won't have to face a full season of taking all those hits. Because the last thing you want to do with a young quarterback like Mendoza is get him hurt or, put him in a situation where he's going to have damaged confidence. But I'm telling you, what we're going to see this year in the NFL are just multiple teams from each side. Broncos, Chiefs, and Chargers in the West. Texans, Colts, and Jags in the South. Ravens, Bengals, Steelers in the North, with the Bills and the Patriots in the East. That's all from the AFC, all teams which are going to factor into that playoff race. In the NFC, you've got the Rams, 49ers, Seahawks in the West. In the South, the Panthers and Buccaneers. We'll see if the Saints or the Falcons can become playoff contenders. In the North, Chicago, Detroit, Green Bay, and Minnesota. And in the East, Dallas looks like a legit football team this year. Underrated sign of bringing in Von Miller, who had 9 sacks last year. I think they're going to be better defensively. And Dak Prescott coming off a big year. They've got skill position players. They're going to have good balance on offense. I like what Dallas has put together. You got 3 teams in Washington, Philly, and the Cowboys who are going to compete in the NFC East. A lot of good storylines, a lot of good teams. It's going to be a very deep NFL season on both sides, NFC and AFC. All right, when we come back, we'll talk some NFL. The mess with the Browns, how Bo Nix looked in his return to football after the ankle injury. Ryan Edwards, 850 KOA, will join us to talk some ball here on the Rip City Drive. All right, our next guest is someone we love talking football with. He is with 850 KOA in Denver. Ryan Edwards is back on the show. Ryan, happy football season. It's almost here, baby.
Very excited, as you know.
Oh, dude, I love it, man. I can't wait to be able to watch football. And we had a chance to see Bo Nix back on the field. I think he was 6 of 9, 76 yards, a touchdown, 3 of 4 on third down. What did you think about his comeback, that first game back since the injury against Buffalo in the playoffs?
Yeah, I thought it looked good, man. I imagine you thought so too. It kind of checked every box. You were trying to see how much rust there would be, and you sort of wondered how Davis Webb would approach that game. First game back, first time on the field since the injury. Would he take it easy on him? Would it be a bunch of checkdowns? Or would he, try to dial up some of the deep passing game that we've seen in training camp, some of the vertical passing? And they decided to get aggressive in it. Early on, there was a couple of shot play opportunities, and then they eventually got the deep seam to Jalen Waddle on the option route. And they're still working out some timing, but I mean, it was great. It was a beautiful thing to see. 30-yard completion there with the yak, and then the wheel route to R.J. Harvey. I mean, we've seen that time and time again in training camp. We certainly saw some of it last year. So there were some concepts that they put out there where it was to say, listen, we think he's ready to go, and we're going to call a game like he's ready to go. We're not going to try to protect him. And I thought it was great.
What are you expecting from Davis Webb? A more aggressive play caller? Like, how do you think we'll see some maybe subtle differences between Peyton and the way he calls games?
Yeah, we'll probably see a little bit more motion pre-snap. I think that the idea is to get Bo Nix to the line so he can survey things, and then you can run some motion, and then you can see if they're in man or zone. Get as much read on the defense as you can, because in the past, Sean kind of milked the clock a bit, right? And then Bo Nix would get to the line, and then they'd have to go, and wouldn't get a chance to really read much. And so in this case, I think they want to give Bo Nix an opportunity from the pocket to sort of dissect and see things first, and then try to get guys in position and go from there. I think that you'll see a little bit more consistent run attack. I'm wondering from the sort of the substitutions so far, we've seen a pretty clean substitution. It hasn't been like every single snap you're having a different running back in there. But also, J.K. Dobbins hasn't played yet. So I want to see if there's an intent to manage his snaps, if it's going to be a lot more R.J. Harvey and Jonah Coleman kind of mixing in. So all those things I guess we'll probably really learn in the regular season, but those are a couple of things that jump out early.
All right, Sean Payton was really upset after the game against Green Bay. I can understand because he's a head coach and he wants to make sure his team's ready for the regular season. But 2 questions. One, why do you think he was so unhappy with the game, especially with what we saw from Bo? And do you think he's actually going to play his starters into the third quarter in the preseason finale?
Yeah, that was a funny moment. I don't know. He's going to probably tell us on Wednesday what he's thinking. I imagine the starters will play some. Maybe there's some key guys on defense that he's seen enough from, like Pat Surtain and Nick Benito, guys like that. It's like, what else can you learn from putting them out there? But I would expect we're going to see Bo Nix out there for a little bit. It wouldn't surprise me. I think more time on task with his offensive coordinator. I'd say the reason he was upset is he kind of pointed it out. To pick a stat, pick anything, time of possession, penalties, anything that would be negative, and they lost all of them. And that's not exactly, even with backups, that's not how you want to play. And I do think Sean's the kind of coach, like probably every coach, but especially Sean, that he's always looking to get better.
Yeah.
And so when he sees basically this beautiful sort of thing put in front of him of, we just lost by 20 points at home, and we lost all these statistical categories. So now I get a chance when we go into the film session, I can go ahead and be hard on you guys. I can coach you hard when it's difficult to coach the guys hard after, say, the Atlanta game, because you won that game so easily. And maybe they are feeling a little bit of themselves after that Atlanta game and winning 14 games last year. But this gives Sean Payton just so much juice to really work these guys over, and I think it's ultimately going to help them.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, you're around these coaches and talk to them all the time. My guess would be when your team gets their ass kicked that you're in a position where you get their attention much easier instead of a team that continues to win games, right? Because when you win, you're like, yeah, coach, I understand, but we won the game, right? I mean, that's the player mentality, right. And I understand that.
Well, that's exactly right. So, you come off the Atlanta game where it was just very businesslike. I mean, they dominated in every facet. And it's like, well, that's what you're supposed to do. But, you get it sort of seeped in. It's been a really good training camp, a lot of competition out there. They already know they're a very deep team that has Super Bowl aspirations. And then your first experience playing in a game is, everything works perfectly. With the exception of a couple special teams things, like you were like, man, we really dominated. We had a couple things to clean up, and we're ready to go. And then you show up against Green Bay, and it's the opposite in pretty much every way, except for, like you mentioned, Bo Nix and a couple stuff with the first team. There's multiple breakdowns, and especially when you got into the later portion of the game, they were really getting gashed in the run. Guys that are depth players that are going to make this roster were having tough games. So that's where it's like, all right, now we got to have a refocus on the details, and it matters to everybody. So I'd say, like I said, they look for these opportunities all the time. You can sometimes have them in regular season, but it's super nice to have them in the preseason.
We're talking with Ryan Edwards, 850 KOA in Denver. Now, you and I have talked about this before. I believe Bo Nix is a franchise quarterback. Are you sold on Bo at this point?
I am, and not even as a juxtaposition to the quarterbacks behind him, which is pretty obvious at this point. But I'd say, yeah, he's shown, he just the ability to be clutch. People will talk about some of the uneven play, and he deserves criticism for that. He's going to continue to have to clean that up. But the stuff that you just don't know if they have it in them until they're playing. And some of those things are like never come about. Like you see plenty of quarterbacks that play at a high level. Heck, Josh Allen at times has a difficulty being clutch, right? He can put up all sorts of incredible numbers, but he fails to close, especially in the postseason. Where Patrick Mahomes, he puts up good numbers, but even when he doesn't put up great numbers, he closes. And so Bo Nix has shown that ability. He can close. And so to start from that and build back the rest feels like something that's relatively, I'm not saying easy, but it's just something that you feel like is attainable versus going the other way around where it's like, boy, quarters 1 through 3, he's magnificent. And then we get to the fourth quarter, he just doesn't know how to finish games. It's the opposite. So that's where I feel like, hey, for your franchise guy, if I were going to tell you this guy closes games, he won 11 games last year by 1 score. They had all these comeback wins. You'd be like, yeah, that's a guy that we can build around.
All right. So, and I agree with you. And so when I hear criticism of Bo, it usually comes in a few different areas. One, the inconsistent footwork, getting happy feet in the pocket, which appeared to be better this past weekend. The inability to attack the middle of the field, and then the lack of, percentage with his downfield throws last year. Are those the same ones you hear? And then in the football people you talk to, are those areas that are correctable and where a guy can continue to improve?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I hear the same things, and I say they are correctable, but it's like they're correctable to a point, as in, do they recognize those things as deficiencies, and is he doing what he's being asked to do, or in what he's being coached to do? How much of a factor? It's like so many short passes he had at Oregon, or even early on in his rookie year, where he's just sort of hitting these checkdowns and these dump offs, and people are like, well, it's a checkdown merchant. It's like, well, that's what they're asking him to do. So he needs to continue to develop the rest of it. And I think what Sean has done is he's designed an offense around him to accentuate his strengths while trying to build for the rest of those things that you just mentioned. So give him the opportunity and time to develop that. This is year 3. I know he's an older quarterback, and I think that's what this usually comes back to is like, if you're an older quarterback and you set an NCAA record with starts at quarterback, you should have already figured these things out. It's like, well, yes, but also no, because this is only his 3rd year in the league. And so give that a little bit of time. Josh Allen really hit a stride in his 3rd year. First 2 years were pretty rough. In his 3rd year, he really took a massive step forward. And I think that's kind of the mindset here is like, all right, each year he's improving. Let's see when he makes that really dramatic jump. And this would be a good time, of course, because after this year, they could pay him.
Hey, Ryan, this Cleveland Browns situation is not surprising because they've been a mess of an organization for a long time. I know a couple of guys who work in Cleveland, and I had texted with them, and they had told me that they thought the battle in camp between Shedeur and Deshaun Watson was pretty even. Like no one had really separated themselves in that race. And then I saw the press conference this past weekend where I thought Deshaun Watson went out of his way to try and burn bridges, maybe in hopes of being cut or getting traded. And then they go out today and announce him as the starter. What's your read on that situation? It's so bizarre.
Yeah, it's weird, but it's like more follow the money, and that's kind of
what it is. It's the
my
money.
take on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe this is ownership leaning. I mean, that's what it feels like is ownership leaning and saying if it's close, we got to go Deshaun. We gotta show some kind of ROI on this investment. It's already been one of the biggest busts in the history of the NFL. But if he somehow managed to scratch out a decent, if not average season, you're going to feel a little bit better about having to cut him next year when you decide to draft a quarterback.
Yeah.
But right now, it's like, well, I know Shador is a very popular fan favorite, but we got to know for certain this guy can't play. We got to know for certain that he can't fill this role that we're paying him so much freaking money toward. And then you'll look like an organization that is paying attention when you do eventually turn it over to Shador if Deshaun falls in his face. But if you go the other way, and if Shador struggles, then you go to Deshaun. At that point, why is he even on the roster? Like, based on what he's making, he shouldn't even be a backup. So I feel like you know, if we really take a step back, 30,000-foot view, this makes all the sense in the world. You start with Deshaun, you find out what happens. If he falls on his face halfway through the year, you can go ahead and turn it over to Shador, and then whatever happens, because you're likely going in a new direction at quarterback next year, and you're almost definitely at that point going in a new direction at head coach too.
I wanted to ask you, of the teams that did not make the postseason last year, which of those teams do you think is primed to make the postseason this year? It seems like every year in the NFL there's a team that missed the postseason the previous year that makes it the following season.
Well, the cheat would be Detroit.
Yeah.
Right? That would.
But
like
that's
Detroit,
legit, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the division is insane. You know, that's one that jumps out almost immediately. I trying to think. You know, NFC West obviously is pretty loaded with the exception of Arizona. So you got three teams there.
Maybe
that
Dallas in the East, maybe?
Mix. Yeah, Dallas, that's a wide open division. You know, I mean, you know, the Giants could be one of those like quirky, weird teams, or they also could be a complete disaster. You know, I think John Harbaugh makes them a little like their floor a little bit better. But that doesn't guarantee you anything in that division. And Philadelphia keeps getting penciled in as sort of the team that's gonna make it. But you're right, Dallas has got a talented roster. I like Christian Parker on the defense a lot. We knew him really well out here in Denver. They're building something down there too. So yeah, there's a handful of teams. That's also makes the league so great, right? Is just every year we sort of pencil in who we think is going to be the best teams, and then all of a sudden, you know, we get surprised.
From the people you've talked to, Ryan, how do you think the Raiders are going to handle Fernando Mendoza? I like what I've seen from him so far in preseason, but they're in this great spot where they don't have to rush him out on the field. They got Kirk Cousins. We know the offensive line is probably going to be a little bit leaky, and maybe they can prevent some of that physical damage he might take early in the season as he continues to learn the game. Would you play him right away? Would you let him sit and then bring him in later in the year? What do you think is the best approach there?
Man, Dave Logan, voice of the Broncos, and I go back and forth on this all the time. I am a big proponent of playing your first overall pick quarterback. I think, you know, especially given the expectations for the Raiders this year, as long as you don't think it would break his mentality, which he just seems like the kind of guy that it would not, I would put him out there, take his lumps. The more play time, the better, because what we're really interested in is next year when we're trying to make a better run. This year is about finding out what you have in him. And playing half the season of Kirk Cousins, I don't think gives you that. Now, to your point, and what Dave argues, is you got to sell that to the rest of the locker room because they're there to win. You know, they're paid professionals. They're not there to develop a rookie. They want to win games now. And so if they view Kirk Cousins as the guy that can help them win games in the immediate, and then you bring in the rookie at some point, then fine. But I still think as organizationally, you should just make the call. We got to play our first overall pick. We got to know what we have in him and know, hey, are we building around this guy? Or if the team is really bad again, you know, how long of a leash? Because we live in a new era of quarterbacking. You don't have to stick around with these guys. You know, I mean, you can hang with them for a year or two, or you could say, you know what, that was a mess last year. We're picking top 3 again here. It's a great quarterback class. I'm not saying that you would initially go that route, but you're not going to know with him riding the bench. That's my point.
We're talking to Ryan Edwards, 850 KOA in Denver. Do you think three teams, Chiefs, Chargers, and Broncos, all make the playoffs from the West?
I do. Yeah, it just feels like they're all set up. Now, the Chargers are always weird, right? I mean, they get injured every year.
Every year.
They already lost their starting center. And, I mean, I wouldn't trust the Chargers in the postseason, but the addition of Mike McDaniel on the offensive side of the ball is going to make pretty much their entire operation, especially their running game, better. So I really like that addition. That was a great hire. They've got a lot of talent. They always do. And Herbert is a great regular season quarterback. So it feels like that is like sort of okay, let's sort of pencil in those three. But then again, that disregards teams like the Bengals, you know, for example, or the Ravens. Both the Bengals and Ravens also missed the playoffs last year. And the Steelers might be the team that falls apart. Wouldn't surprise me at all. But that's what I'm saying. Like, AFC North has got some teams. You know, there's certainly a couple of teams out of the AFC East, obviously, with the Bills and the Patriots. They're both going to be in the mix. And the South also has some argument about a couple of teams. So it's going to be interesting. But yes, to long-winded, I think all three teams are very viable postseason teams.
All right, one final question for you, buddy. I'm so pumped on the Broncos this year because of the roster that they have, and they have a lot of continuity coming back, especially with the offensive line. What's the one area of concern to keep an eye on? Is it depth at safety? Is it the middle linebackers? Like, where's the issue here with this team?
Well, I mean, you're right. They're really deep. I mean, certainly health is always going to be, you know, the biggest one, right? I mean, no team can completely hide from that. You certainly hope that, you know, if Bo Nix gets hurt, then
they're done.
That's your major area.
See ya.
That's your major area.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty much done at that point. Bo Nix stays healthy and upright. I feel like they've got really good depth pretty much everywhere else. Yeah, offensive line could get a little interesting if you had two injuries. One injury I think you can handle pretty well, but if you stack a couple of those, they're going to be out for several games. Things could get a little hairy there because they got some developmental guys behind a lot of these players, but the immediate, like the Matt Pearts of the world, like it's not great. But Alex Palczewski be fine, and you know, you're developing Cage Casey. There's some guys to develop behind them, but you know, there's a little scary there. You know, I would have. There's moments where I'm really excited about the depth on the D line because you know JFM is gone, so it's been like, all right, who's going to be filling that gap? And between Malcolm Roach and Eniomo Wazirike, it's been very good. But I really wanted to see more from Tyler Onyedem, the third rounder, as well as Savion Jones, who was last year's third rounder. I want to see more from them. So in the immediate, if you had a couple of D-line injuries, then things could get hairy. But again, I feel like they're in pretty good shape really for the rest of the roster. So it's, like I said, quarterback's the one, though, to your question.
Yeah. Is the team going to drop the hammer? I mean, is the NFL going to drop the hammer on Jonathan Cooper? The case has been delayed. What are you hearing there? Is he going to be around, or what do you expect to happen?
It's still up in the air. My gut is that eventually the charges will be dropped or it'll be settled out of court, and then it'll be up to the NFL based on the facts and the information they have, whether they decide to go the full 6 games with the domestic violence, or if they feel as though there's a little bit of we're not really sure what kind of happened. Maybe we'll do a little bit lesser, like a couple of games. So we'll see kind of where that comes down. I do expect him to get some kind of suspension, though.
All right. Ryan Edwards, 850 KOA. Dude, you're the man. I appreciate you making time. I'm so excited for football season. Thank you for talking ball with me, and I look forward to chatting with you in the future, buddy.
Anytime, brother. Appreciate you.
You got you. There you go. Ryan Edwards, 850 KOA. Football season is upon us, my friends. You got to love it. We'll keep things rolling. Hope you're enjoying your Monday. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Well, I appreciate your time today. I have no idea how Michael Shacker and I have survived. The thermostat in this building, as they continue the remodel, it's totally down. So when I came in the building today, I instantly felt the warm air. And inside the studio, there's no air circulation. So it just continues to get warmer and warmer and warmer as the day has gone on. So I have swamp ass right now, and I don't like it. I can feel beads of sweat forming on the small of my lower back. My underwear should not be married to my skin right now, and yet it is. I should not be uncomfortable in the workplace, and yet I am. I do not like this entire situation, and the problem is I don't think it's going to be quickly solved either.
My socks are soaked.
Yeah.
I'm drenched in my shoes.
No, it's gross. I don't like being moist at work. It's just not how I like to roll. And I hate it when you go to try and figure out what the problem is and whether or not it's going to be resolved, and there's no answer.
And then I got in trouble with salespeople because I've been working with the door open, and then I've been told multiple times I'm too loud in here.
And he got me yelling through the talkback speaker.
I've been keeping that volume low.
And I remember that most of the conversation that takes place during the breaks amongst sports people like ourselves, it's not stuff that the salespeople want to hear on the floor. But the problem is with the remodel, we're all stacked on top of each other. You know, everyone's closer together now.
Yeah, we're in a fishbowl. They can see us, but we're so close they can hear us, even when the door's shut.
That's not good. All right, let's go out to the phones. Mitch in New Jersey wants to jump on board. Mitch, what's up, brother?
What's popping, Chad? I guess you wouldn't want to be a lifeguard then, huh? That requires being a little wet at times.
Yeah, no, I don't want to do that. I did lifeguard once. I filled in at the health club I used to work at. I wasn't very good at it, but fortunately, no one needed my services. So I just did my time and moved on.
Yeah, it looks easy, but it's not.
I'll tell you what is not fun, Mitch. Going to the Dodger games again. In my last 8 games at Dodger Stadium, they are 1-7. And then as soon as I left Dodger Stadium, they won 6 straight in Colorado and then came back home and beat the Pirates in 3 straight. So 6 straight wins after I'm not there in person viewing them.
Well, stay away from my brother. Don't go to the road games just to be safe, all right?
All right.
I'm a little worried about their offense. But I tell you who's going to score more runs. I think they might win more games than the Raiders. They will. I think the USC is going to have a good year. I'm going to see a game. I'm going to the Rutgers and USC game September 19th. I'm going to see my first USC game.
That's awesome.
I usually go to person games. I know it's awesome. I'm going solo. I think parking's more than a ticket. I didn't know that when I bought the ticket first. I figured I'll pay when I get there. But I was looking at let me get the tickets first.
How far is Rutgers from where you live? How far do you have to drive?
I think it's about an hour's drive.
Well, that's not bad.
I passed by the stadium when my brother moved up from Virginia. He retired, I believe. He's just about retired. He moved from Virginia to Ithaca, New York. And I got directions on my the GPS, and I passed the Rutgers Stadium. I found it by accident. It's in Piscataway. It's really awesome. I wish it was the Giant Stadium, but I'll take it. It's less of a drive, and I think Giant Stadium is more of a headache to park. And all. But I think it's going to be a good year. I know the first 3 or 4 games, including Rutgers, is easy, but they have one of the toughest schedules this year. But they got a lot of good defensive linemen. I think they're going to have 3 or 4 chosen next year's draft. Miami's going to win the Heisman. I'm going to Tailback University. They got 5 running backs, 5, 6 freshmen at wide receivers. The season is going to be awesome, I think.
No, I think the Trojans are going to be great. The first big game comes early in the season when Oregon travels down to California to take on USC. That's going to be a big-time ball game.
I know that this Saturday game's at 3 my time. Then they got a Friday night game at 9 o'clock my time. And then the following one is at 11 o'clock my time. It's ridiculous.
You're retired. What do you care? You can stay up late.
I know. I got weekends. I'm busy now with my 2 grandsons. Then weekdays when they go to school, that's when Mitch goes to play.
Well, this is perfect, though. What you got to do now, because your grandsons are growing up on the East Coast, you got to make sure you do a good job of being a grandpa and raise them on USC football.
USC and also with the Dodgers. You know Q Myers.
Yes.
He not guy's name. I put my grandson a couple of times on the radio, and I got him to say, "Go Dodgers, fight on before Father's Day. It was the last one.
That's great.
I got him on the radio.
That's great. I here in about 5 years, I can expect phone calls from Mitch and his two grandsons. You guys can all call in separately and start talking about West Coast teams. I love the idea. That's a good idea.
I won't push them that way, but they're going to see him. My daughter rolls her eyes. You understand.
Yeah, I do. My daughter rolls her eyes at me all the time.
Just do the opposite of that, right? Right. Things be okay.
That's right.
It's a little good in bed, but she's okay and everything. The grandsons are great. The one, three, terrible twos and three. He's still kicking up a storm, but I love the key sweet and my little one.
No, you're the man, Mitch.
Precious.
No, you're the man.
Precious. Thanks a lot.
No, you're the man. That's Mitch, retired and now a grandpa, and still an avid follower of the Rams, the Dodgers, and the USC Trojans. Big thanks to Michael Shacker. We survived the heat box today.
I hope you're in the crowd October 4th at Levi's Stadium for Broncos-Niners.
And congratulations to John Canzano for kicking off BFT Unfiltered. You can listen to him tomorrow at 2 o'clock here on Rip City Radio 620. Big thanks to Ryan Edwards for joining the show and all of you for listening. I appreciate it. You guys have a good night, and we'll check you tomorrow right here on the Rip City Drive.